This experience happened 38 years ago, when I was only 10 years old. Every year during my vacation, I would go to my grandfather's house to play. Grandfather lived in a beautiful countryside. I loved the environment there because it made me feel relaxed and at ease. Besides my grandfather, I had a cousin who was 2 years older than me, and we always played together. Near my grandfather's house there was a beautiful little river where the water was very clear. My cousin and I would often go there to fish. The scenery around the river was very beautiful, with many tall trees. It was a hot summer day and my brother and I wanted to go fishing on the river. We approached our grandfather and hoped that he would agree to our request. Grandfather didn't agree at first, but we kept begging him. Finally, grandfather agreed to our request. Grandfather reminded us not to go into the water. We grabbed our fishing gear and food and went to the river. We found a quiet place, sat down and started fishing. Time passed slowly and we didn't catch a single fish. My brother and I started to feel a little frustrated, but we didn't give up. We decided to try a different place, hoping to catch some fish. We found a new place and started preparing again. We waited quietly for the fish to take the bait. Suddenly, my rod started to shake and I felt very excited because I knew I had caught a fish. This fish was very smart and kept struggling to try to escape our hook. Finally, I managed to catch this fish. We were very excited because it was the first fish we had caught today. We started discussing the type and size of this fish. We fished for some more time and managed to catch a few fish. I reminded my cousin that it was time for us to go home, but he didn't seem to want to leave. He replied, a little angrily, that he had to catch a fish before he left because I caught all the fish in the fish frame. Time went by and we waited for quite a while at the river, but there was never any movement in cousin's fishing rod. After a while, cousin's hook got stuck on something. He tried to adjust the position of the fishing rod, but still could not pull the hook out of the water. He was ready to take off his clothes and go down the river to get the fish hook up. I immediately reminded my cousin that my grandfather told us not to go into the water. But my cousin didn't seem to pay attention to my words. I felt a little worried, knowing that the river could be very deep and the current was strong. Cousin walked in the direction of the fish hook. Soon, I noticed that my cousin started to struggle. I shouted to him to get back to the shore. But he was already submerged in the water. I found a branch on the shore. After he grabbed the branch, I started to pull him hard. However, an accident happened and I was dragged into the water. The water slowly flooded over my head and wrapped my whole body in it. I tried to breathe, but each breath made me feel more painful. My throat felt like something was blocking it. Not a single ounce of oxygen could enter my lungs. Suddenly, I seemed to hit something and a sharp pain shot through my back. My body started to get weaker and weaker, and I started to sink under the water. The realization that I was dying filled my heart with despair. I knew there was nothing I could do, and I was ready to face my impending death. Suddenly, I heard a voice. He told me, "Relax, everything will be fine." I felt a pair of gentle hands holding me, making me feel inexplicably safe. Although I was still submerged, the fear in my heart faded away. The voice made me feel close, as if it was a friend I knew. He told me not to be afraid, and that he would lead me out of this predicament. I suddenly felt my body being lifted up. I felt that I was no longer bound by the water and could breathe freely. My body felt light and comfortable. With the help of an angel, I floated toward a bright light. I felt this light getting brighter and brighter. When we reached that light, I felt its energy. I knew I had gone beyond the boundaries of life to a new realm. I was about to thank the angel when he had disappeared. I continued to float there, my mind filled with doubts. I didn't know where this was or what was going to happen next. I also felt, at the same time, that this place was so familiar, as if I had been here before. Just then, I saw a man approaching me. As he approached, I felt a strong wave of love. The energy was boundless and I felt like I was about to explode. This man seemed very familiar with me, as if he was waiting for me to arrive. I could communicate with him through my thoughts. He told me he was here to help me with my problem. Then he showed me some images, like a movie unfolding in front of my eyes. My life was going backwards. I saw one of the images. It was a hot summer day. My friends and I were playing in the street. After seeing my neighbor's bike, I thought of a prank to deflate the bike tires. So I loosened the air nozzle of the tire a bit, and then the gas slowly leaked out of the tire. At that time, I felt this prank was very funny and my friends were very excited. A few days later, my neighbor complained to my parents that the tires on the bike were always leaking air. My parents asked me, "Did you do this?" I was afraid to tell the truth because I was afraid of being blamed and punished, so I denied it. When I saw this image, I felt very regretful. The man didn't criticize me. It just smiled and told me that the past could not be changed and that anyone can make mistakes. The only thing you can do now is to learn from past mistakes and become a better person. What was shown wasn't all bad. I saw an image that made me proud. One day, while walking around my home, I found a black wallet on the side of the road. I decided to wait a while and see if anyone came back to look for it. I waited there for a long time, but no one showed up. I thought the owner might have left the area, so I decided to give the wallet to the police department and let them find the owner. A few days later, a lady found my house. She thanked me for helping her find the wallet. She told me that a photo in the wallet was very important to her. Her mother had died a long time ago, and it was the only picture her mother had. I was glad that I was able to help her and glad that I gave the wallet to the police department. The lady asked me if I needed payment and I declined her kind offer. She gave me a grateful hug. It made me feel very satisfied and happy. Then the movie stopped, and everything I wanted to know was answered. The man asked me, "Would you like to go for a stroll in the garden?" I saw a beautiful garden. Each flower in the garden was blooming with a different color. As we continued walking along the garden, we entered a wide lawn. There were many small children playing happily on the lawn. One little girl came up to me. She looked only 7 or 8 years old. She asked me, "Are you new here?" I nodded my head. She smiled and said, "Welcome, would you like to play with us?" I was very happy to say yes, and then she took me to meet the other children. We sat under a big tree. She took out a small handkerchief with small stones of various colors. She said, "This is my baby, which contains the small stones I collected. Would you like to play a game of guess the color with us?" I nodded my head, indicating that I would like to play the game with them. The little girl told me that she would take out a stone and hold it in her hand, and I would have to guess what color it was. If I guessed correctly, she would give me a stone. I looked at the little girl's hand and tried to guess which color stone she was holding. My answer was green, because green was the color she collected the most. The little girl showed her hand, which was holding a green stone. She exclaimed excitedly, "You guessed it." She handed the stone to me and I took it feeling very happy. The other children also got excited and started to show me their own collections and asked me to guess the color of them. This game was full of fun and surprises and made me feel very happy. Finally, one of the little boys said, "My mommy told me to go home, I can't play with you guys anymore." When I heard the little boy's words, I felt a pang of sadness. I began to miss my family, especially my grandfather. I could imagine the grief he felt inside when he heard the news that I had died. I didn't want my parents to blame him either. The man beside me seemed to sense my uneasiness, and he told me that it was time to go back, and that you had a lot of unfinished business. I asked him curiously, "What task?" He did not reveal more details, just told me, "You will know when the time comes." Suddenly, I felt a lurch. I saw my surroundings become blurred, followed by darkness. After a while, I realized I was back in that river. I was very surprised and confused because I remembered that I was dead. I looked up and saw that the man was still beside me. He smiled and said to me, "Go back to your family." Then he slowly disappeared in front of my eyes. I felt my body was gradually coming back to life. I found myself lying on the bank of the river. I saw the beautiful blue sky again, and I could breathe again. I saw my brother also lying on the bank. I nudged my brother, and he slowly woke up. We both looked at each other in surprise. Just then, I heard a voice, "Children, are you all right?" I looked up and found my grandfather running toward us. His eyes were full of worry and care. My brother and I immediately sat up from the ground and hugged our grandfather tightly. He helped us up and took us back home. When we got home, my grandmother found some clothes for us to change into. I was about to take off my clothes when I found a hard object in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw that it was the green stone. I was shocked because I knew it was given to me by that little girl. I put the stone in my hand and felt its weight and texture. I knew that this stone was a special gift. Next year, I will turn 60 years old. That stone has always been with me. Whenever I see it, I remember that amazing experience. The experience that changed the course of my life. I want to tell the whole world that God and heaven are real. I am praying silently that one day everyone will feel the love and warmth of God. Whenever I remember that experience, my heart is filled with gratitude and awe. We should treat everyone around us with as much love as possible. Although sometimes I will encounter challenges, I will think of that rock and that little girl who will remind me of the presence of God.